welcome to the latest edition of the Campaign Doctor. You may have heard it in the news. Germans are heading to the polls at the end of February to have early elections because the incumbent coalition fell apart. In Austria, the three parties that tried to form a coalition government just announced a few days ago that their effort has failed. And in France, President Macron has been trying to put together a coalition that has a majority ever since last summer. Now, what is happening in Europe? The three countries are, of course, individual. Each one is unique. But I do see a common factor here, which is a growing party on the right end of the political spectrum. I've always found the term populist difficult. You may not call them right-wing, some do, but I think you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the AfD in Germany, about the FPÖ in Austria, and about the Rassemblement National in France. Now, here's the thing. These parties are growing, and all the other parties say that they don't want to govern with them together. So, in other words, it's becoming harder and harder to put together a majority without them. Austria is a good example for this. The three parties really didn't have much in common other than wanting power and wanting to block the FPÖ. In the end, they had to admit that that was not enough as a basis to form a government. Now, what has been happening in Europe? Ever since World War II, when there was a new movement with a new issue, a challenger party, I would call it, the mainstream parties absorbed it. Always what happened is that the same formula, when there was a challenger party that resonated with voters, the mainstream parties would absorb a big chunk of their policy proposals, 70%, but then draw the lines of distinction very clearly and try to paint the challenger as extremist. So it was always a combination between neutralizing them policy-wise, since they resonated with the electorate, but at the same time drawing the lines of distinction in terms of communication. A good example is the Green Party. Nowadays, protecting the environment, fighting climate change has become mainstream in Europe. There may be a different sense of timing. At times there are different priorities, but as is being said, once you agree on the goal, you can compromise on the way to reach the goal. Now, during the past 10 years, a real earthquake has shaken Europe with respect to asylum. In this case, that's really what is the driving factor behind the growth of those right-wing parties. Yes, I mean, in the AfD and in the FPÖ, there are some people that are really, in my mind, nuts, but that's not the reason why they're growing. The parties are growing because voters have no other choice, because election after election, they saying loud and clear the same thing. We don't want this asylum policy anymore, where the right to asylum is really abused and undermined. And in this case, the mainstream parties don't listen. The mainstream parties don't react. In fact, the exact opposite is happening. The mainstream parties, together with the media, with the whole education, university apparatus, the church and the judges, keep telling voters not to believe their own eyes, but to believe what they're telling them, namely that only a racist or a Nazi would have any concern about asylum. And guess what? People believe their own eyes. Thanks for watching.